Welcome to Beyond Influence, our inaugural episode. Really excited about the guest that we have today, known very well by my co-host, Kwame. Excited to have Chelsea on. Baby Chelsea, introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. This is so funny. I am on Kwame and Scott's new podcast, Beyond the Influence. I'm super excited to be here. Kwame is in the other room in his office, and I am sitting in our living room. This is a really funny dynamic, but it'll be a fun conversation, and I'm happy to be here for your inaugural episode.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. I feel like I had a whole intro for you. I don't know if I get to. I'm gonna rewind that.
Let's hear it. Let's hear your
Are you
intro.
Ready? Are you ready? Okay. So everyone, please sit down. Turn on your podcasts. Tune in to our episode of Beyond Influence today. We have the one, the only, the Pink Queen, the Netflix superstar, my wife, Chelsea Griffin Appiah.
Oh, thank
That
you.
was much better than my version. We'll take it.
Thank you, darling. I appreciate that very much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for hopping on with us today, Chelsea. For real. I know. It's really funny when we had the interview started or scheduled to start. I went out and she's sitting down and she's like, "Okay, I'm waiting." And I'm like, "Oh, can we get like 15 minutes? We got to figure some things out." And so I'm sitting here trying to figure out the technical difficulties, and she walks in and grabs the vacuum. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I got 15 minutes." I'm going to do something.
Productive. Yeah. Yep. I'm not just going to sit on this couch and twiddle my thumbs while I wait.
Yeah. Love that about you.
That's funny. Thank you.
Well, we're so excited to have you. As you know, Beyond Influence, we love to talk to influencers and creators about their journey, what the real life is behind the posts and the content, and, hear who the creator is and the human beings behind these stories and these people we follow. And we thought it was super fitting. We all know you and your relationship. We talked with Kwame about, just how public the beginning of your relationship was and what kind of situation that is. And so just wanted to spend some time connecting with you and hearing how things have gone since the show. It's a year now and that journey and just, how life is and how things have changed.
Oh my gosh. Feels like everything's changed. A lot has changed. I think it's really interesting when you enter this influencer digital space with very little experience, right? I mean, when you go on a show like Love is Blind, you really are as normal as a person next door to you, right? Like that is something that appealed to me about Love is Blind. They weren't looking for influencers, models, actors. Like these are normal, everyday people. I was a pediatric speech therapist, living my best life. Dating apps weren't working for me and clock was ticking. And I was like, well, you could take the opportunity and go for it, and just see what happens. And I'm obviously so glad that I did. But it was a long, really cool, unique journey to hear. Getting married in this way is very different than traditional, long dating, courtship style, getting to know your wife years before, husband, partner years before you marry them. But I'm really proud of Kwame and I and how far we have come in 2 years, and super excited for all the exciting things we have in store to come.
So I'm curious, as you're going through this crazy experience, obviously there's the side where you and Kwame are developing a relationship and you're kind of, in the pods figuring out, which way do I want to go? And you're kind of immersed in that experience. Did it ever hit you? You're like, oh man, this is different. I'm going to be on a stage. Someone's going to play this back. Or you come out of a conversation or, self-conscious about the recording and kind of, I guess, when did that platform and that audience, when did that start to hit you of like, oh man, people are going to see this?
So there was a moment when, so we don't get to see it before, like literally when it drops to the world is when we all get to watch it for the first time. And it was the week leading up to our season drop, our premiere. And what they do is they give editors and critique, individuals in the, TV space, they get to watch it beforehand. And somebody reached out to me on my Instagram and was like, Chelsea, I love you so much. Like, you and Kwame are amazing. I'm only on episode 3. And I was like, oh shit. Like, it was a really big moment. And it was also like a sigh of relief because I was like, oh, okay, like somebody is taking to our story, right? Like they're taking to me as an individual and, enjoying Kwame and I as a couple. And so it was really a big moment of like, oh, wow, like this is going to be real. And it's not just this one person, it's like the world. But Scott, was never like, I really went into Love is Blind only being comfortable doing it if I was going to present my best self. And if I was going to be okay with how I, did things, how I talk to people, of course there's stress and a lot of unexpected things that are thrown your way. But for me, like during the whole experience, I wasn't nervous about anything that, I did necessarily or said, or anything that was kind of like put into it. But when, editing is a piece of everything, even reality television. So I was just hoping that, I didn't give them anything that they could edit, me poorly on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like how conscious were you of that? I feel like me thrust into that situation, I would just be watching everything I said.
You're pretty conscious. I mean, I would say in the beginning, you're kind of getting used to cameras around you all the time. In the middle, you're, adjusting well. And by the end, you like don't even notice a camera there. So like that is when, those moments when you could, make a slip up or not have a great moment when you kind of forget that they're there. And I always tell people that are thinking about the process, I don't want you to be afraid. I want you to be yourself. And as much as you can be, because if you're really worried and you're scanning and you're constantly on edge, it's going to come off that way. And you're not going to really get the true experience. And you really just need to kind of surrender and like let go and allow the experience to become what it's going to be for you.
I mean, I know a lot of things, a lot of this process, a lot of it is acceptance, knowing that you're going into it, being authentic, being yourself, and just letting the rest of it unfold. And so I I can definitely relate to that, and since then, obviously a lot of things has changed, including you gaining a bit of an audience, right? Having what you refer to more even as a community, because you don't see yourself as an influencer. What's the way that you
I describe myself as an inspirer. If I inspire you to click something, if I inspire you to learn about something, if I inspire you to look into this product because it could be helpful for you in your life, then that's fantastic. If I don't, that's okay too.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I have it's interesting because I didn't even know what a reel was. I didn't even know. I had probably 100 Instagram followers. I mean, I was so not a big social media person at all before this. So as you can imagine, the learning curve was insane and the numbers just kept growing and growing and growing. And every night this astounding number keeps growing and it's unreal. I remember we were at the Coldplay concert and what was it? 70,000 people in this arena. There wasn't one seat open. And I was like, this feels like the biggest concert of my entire life. This is massive. The world is here, And then I think in my mind about what 600,000 people would look like. And it gives me a heart attack. So I think I definitely experienced some, what they call, and I still battle with it. What do they call it? Imposter syndrome, right? I'm a pediatric speech therapist. I didn't grow a following. I didn't grow and have this build and learn as I went. It's one day you wake up and half the world wants to know what you're doing every day, right? It's a pretty wild transition thinking about that. But what helped me in the beginning when I was getting into the digital space and thinking about influencing, so to speak, that kind of thing, I was like, okay, just pretend it's like your close friends and like 10 of your best fans sitting down in a room together. And that's what I think about when I post content. And I want my content to be relatable. I really struggle with social media being this fake reality, because it kind of is. And I think social media can have lots of negative implications. We can compare our life. We can, there's lots of mental health, that's woven into social media, unfortunately. So to kind of combat that and to take that into play, I'm like, okay, my content for the most part is going to be relatable, right? As much as I can, I want to relate to my followers. They need to know that I'm a normal person. I'm a human. I make mistakes. I don't feel confident some days. I don't, right? Like, I'm not a perfect person, and this is not my real life. This is a snippet in my life and in my relationship. So I think that's kind of what I'm really aiming for. And I think I've scratched the surface. But I'm excited to kind of continue to dig into that relatable, empowered space, because I love that kind of content, at least, for me.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's interesting too with you all, because a lot of creators, it's a slow grind. They're on their own. They're kind of forging their way. They're figuring out what works and what hits. And I think two things to me stuck out was you guys have each other in the shared experience to kind of go through it together, and the whole cast is kind of going through this. And so I have to imagine it was a bonding moment, because there's only, maybe these 8 people, who really made it to the end and, kind of went through the whole journey, that really understand what you all have gone through. But then you also have someone who's like literally living in your house, who's trying to figure out who they are and how they want to present themselves to the world and how to deal with all this attention, positive and negative.
Totally. Oh yeah. We were really blessed to have each other. I would be so scared if I was forging that and figuring that all out and doing that all by myself. Kwame and I had both left our jobs like within the same month. So we were like, whoa, what do we do? What is this? How do we do this? And then the learning curve is steep. I mean, I didn't really know how to even edit a video. And I'm still learning every day, but I've come so far, and I'm so proud of how far I've come in, the content that I'm able to create. I remember in the beginning stages, I would read a brief and I would like study it. Oh my God. And then I would spend hours, probably an entire day's worth filming one concept, right? And I loved it. It was so great in my eyes. I was like, oh, like I'm working so hard on this, and like, this is great. Send it in. They were like, no, reshoot the entire thing. So I've had to learn. I've had to really learn, because that's not sustainable. I can't live like that. I can't, the ideal world, I think, for some of these, obviously you want to express yourself and have it be authentic to your brand and who you are, while at the same time adhering to what these brands are looking for. So anyways, I've changed the way I think about it, and I've changed the way I kind of do my drafting, where I'm not spending 8 to 10 hours on one single concept that's going to get dumped.
That's interesting. It's interesting to see how you've developed different strategies and kind of gone through how you want to approach the process. And I think, part of what we're trying to do is to educate new creators on how to approach things, and what advice do you have? And I think that's a good piece of knowledge is sometimes don't stress over, create multiple options, iterate quickly.
Yes.
And I love that.
And there's this natural component, right? Brands want natural. Well, guess what? Selling sometimes, I would say most times, is not really that natural. But like showing is more natural, like showing how you use it in your life or showing. So for me, the more I studied those briefs that brands give you, the worse I did, the less natural it was, right? So obviously I need to understand the key components and kind of have them loosely in my mind. But the more I was like script writing and, you know, fine tuning based on every little point that they mentioned, you know, the less natural it was. And obviously for me and my brand, the less they liked it because they know how authentic I am. They know that that's me and that's something that, you know, is really important to me as an individual. And it's important to, you know, to show that in my content.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting seeing how brands kind of line up the partnership they want to work with. You know, if I was to give any advice to brands, it's to send things, send items, send tests, test kits, whatever you want to the creators and influencers that you want to work with well before even asking for any contracts. You know, when we think about a company that Chelsea and I both partnered with, like Seed, you know, I'm a big advocate for anything that helps with gut health. You know what I mean? So probiotics, anything of that sort. And I've been using, you know, different ones along my life for quite a while. And when I heard about Seed, they sent it to me and they asked for content and I pushed out the content. And then I used Seed for another 2 weeks and I was like, oh my gosh, like if I had been using this for the 2 to 3 weeks before I made this, it would have been completely different because I realized like how much it actually applied to me and how much it actually helped me. Like I feel like my energy and my focus and whatever message I would have delivered would have been so much more relative to my life, therefore relative and relatable to my audience.
Totally agree. Timing is really everything, especially when you're trying out a product. Yeah. You know, brands giving us adequate time to try out the product and see what it's like. I agree. It makes a big difference in the quality of our content and the quality of our message, right? Whether or not, you know, we truly are seeing effects or, you know, what have you with certain products like a probiotic.
Yeah. So I really want to know, based on you and the way that you work and the brands that you've worked with, do you have any favorite brands that you've partnered with that just it made you feel like your creative eye and your design just came to life and you enjoyed it with the content you got to push out?
Oh, that's a really good question. Can I look at my chart? I forget.
A chart which I made, by the way. Well, we put it together. I remember when we started influencing, we were like, we got to figure out a way to keep track of every single brand that we've gotten reached out from and then ended up working with, right? We want to know who we might not have worked with and who we want to circle back to and who went well.
Yeah, I think organization in influencing space is so important, especially people who are pushing out deals every day. Oh my gosh, like you have to have an organizational system. I know there's like different apps that can like schedule content and like help you kind of do that kind of thing. But in terms of like, you know, delivery date, expected pay date, what the brand is, you know, who the client is, what the gross pay, what the net pay, what the take home is the contract signed, is the content delivered, have I received the pay, am I waiting for the pay? Anyway, all these things we have in a spreadsheet. So thank you, Kwame, for creating this very helpful spreadsheet. I would be dying without it. Truly. I truly would.
I just think it's so interesting to see,
look here,
you know, how y'all have navigated the process. And as you go through, you have to, you know, a lot of times create your own tools or partner with folks. And I think one thing I think about is it's still a young industry and there's so many of the kind of struggles to create content, edit content, produce it, partner, manage your finances, the tax implication, all these things are kind of uncharted territory for a lot of folks. And so navigating that can be pretty daunting. It's not like you're just getting, you know, a W-2 from the same company and everything's rolled up for you by an accountant.
Totally. Scott, we should talk about that because we need an accountant that specializes in this. So if you got anybody, Please send it our way. Let's see. My first deal was a vibrator. And I remember, I'm a sex positive individual. That's really important to me that I portray that in who I am and my content. Pleasure is for everybody. And I was like, yes, like I'm going to do it. I'm going to post this, little vibrator. And Kwame took my pictures and it was like the cutest moment and everything. It was our first day of like working together, which was really cute and funny. But I remember like before I posted it, my heart was like pounding. Like I was so nervous and I was like, you know what, Charles, like it's going to be okay. But I think when you are on a worldwide screen where people can, have an opinion about your marriage or what they saw, there is some of that fear that comes up. I mean, everybody gets negativity on the internet, but not to the degree that people, who are on these types of, reality shows or dating shows get. It's really intense. People really get invested, in your love story. So anyways, I loved that one because it was like a very powerful moment for me. It was kind of a really cool way to kick off, this side career. I don't really know what to call it. I also really loved working with, I do a lot of like lifestyle things. Like I love brands that fit into my home, my lifestyle really well. Easy Plant was one that I really, really loved. Easy Plant, like I look at them around my house today and they've given me so much joy in my day-to-day space. I've always wanted to grow plants in my home, but it just never had enough light or never could keep them alive. Easy Plant is a plant that has a water basin that you pour into and it auto waters your plant as it needs water. And you don't have to worry. You literally don't have to touch the plant for like a month to a month and a half. It's insane. Anyways, I love how like naturally that fit into my life, into our space, and to the photos that I take in our home every day. That was one that I really, really loved as well. People know from Love is Blind that I am definitely a fan of photo shoots. Kwame, you can't deny it. You are too. So we have a plethora of photos, and so things like mixed tiles was really amazing because that, went right on our wall.
You get like little square photos and you can hang them up and.
Oh my gosh. Mixed tiles is, you get different, they have auto created photo collages for you.
Oh, that's cool.
Of different sizes, different shapes, different framing, it's such a cool concept. They're super easy. You peel the back, they're on a magnet. So you can have your kids stick them on. You can, tilt them, you can move them around. It's literally like they are geniuses. They are geniuses in the space. And so we had so many pictures that needed to be, off of our phones. And so that was a really, really fun one to do.
Mixed Book, which is right behind you right now as we speak.
And Mixed Book, which is right behind me right now. And they did our wedding book, our wedding photo book with all of our pictures. And also did our honeymoon photos as well.
So that was super cool. I mean, I love getting, I think when it comes to who you are and what your audience is and who you are as an influencer, it's really cool. I'm a big believer in creating a self-identity. I love independence. I think it's really beautiful when you can stand for something. I think it's really beautiful as well when you can collaborate with two minds in the way that they think and the way that they stand as well. I think that Chelsea's a really big presence as an individual, and I love that for her, and I love who she is and the fact that she really represents herself, and won't give that up for anything. I think that that's amazing. I
really held on to that hard. I was like, okay, if you're going to do this and you're going to enter into this world and you're going to have fame, promise yourself as much as you can to never lose yourself. Because that's a scary place to be. And, with everything, with all of our change, with, going on something like Love is Blind, with having this following just burst out of nowhere. I mean, we're growing, we're changing, we're evolving, naturally with all this change, but also like who you are, in your soul. I don't feel like that'll ever change for me, and I don't want it to.
Yeah. I was so Kwame, I had to get like the unique kind of experience of knowing Kwame before the show. And, I know his character and I know how he shows up and the energy he brings. And it was funny because I was reflecting on it. We're just walking through Seattle. We get stopped and literally a gal runs out of a bakery, like flour all over her. And she's like,
no way.
Kwame, I will give you my loaf of bread if you take a picture with my students. And I was like, what is happening right now? I mean, for me, this is like a wild experience. And I was like, is this normal life for Kwame? What's happening? And I'm like, I probably would have ran for cover or like knowing what's happening. And, like to his credit, Kwame instantly, smile on, and not in a fake way, just in like the way that we know Kwame, gives the time of day, says, I'll come back. I'll do whatever you want. Keep your loaf of bread. Let's take a picture. And they posted it. We found it. And it was, it's a work skills bakery for like less employable folks, getting them back out there. And like the whole thing of it was just, for me, it was like a really impactful experience. Cause I'm like, one, it's, watching Kwame evolve into who he is and this personality, exposing that to the rest of the world, but then in day-to-day life, despite getting recognized in what could be very disruptive in his day, giving people the time of day. And it's really impactful. And I think to me, when you're on social media, like you said, you don't really see the numbers. You don't see the humans behind the screen and the impact you're having. And walking around, being able to see the joy and the experience. I know they all walked home and talked to their friends. It was like the coolest posts. They're going to have those, who did you meet, in your life that had notoriety? And they'd be like, oh, I met Kwame on the street. He's so nice, such a good guy. And so, yeah, I think that point about like not losing who you are and, trying to spread positivity, it's a great message.
First of all, why didn't you bring the bread home?
I know. I know. It's a moment where I honestly think, one day I might walk back in there and just say, hey, can I at least buy a loaf? Because it looked like a great bakery, if I'm being honest with you. We're going to have to revisit them at some point.
I'm surprised you turned down the bread, because I've never met an individual that loves bread more than my husband.
Oh, that's so
funny.
Carb
that's
loading.
Really
funny. I think
totally
to tie things back together, getting to work on some partnerships together have been really, really awesome. I think we both struggled with that when we first started, and it's something that we have to be transparent and open and admit to ourselves, because it is a journey. How do you take Chelsea, that is a brand, and how do you take Kwame, that is a brand, and put them together and make it Chelsea and Kwame? And to the whole world, when I go out, a lot of people say like, where's your wife? Where's your wife? So like, we are a brand we are a unit. But when it comes to putting our imprint on something that is our art and something that we thought about and something that we created, and meshing those things together, I believe that the beginning journey of that can take a little bit of time to really understand, and, obviously we've come very far, and I'm really proud of us in that part. And I know there have been really amazing parts of this creator journey, and I'm grateful to get to share that with you. And one thing that I want to know from you is, what is difficult as a creator? What are some difficult things that you want to share with us?
I mean, I think on Scott's point, like you see numbers, but you don't see humans. And I'm such like, I love people, and I'm such like a connector, and I love community, and I love that vulnerability piece, and I just love learning about others. And so the summer after I had stepped away, decided to stepped away from my day job, decided to kind of pursue this work, see what I could learn, see how it could help support my life and my lifestyle. I was like, okay, Chelsea, I was kind of struggling the first few months, and I was kind of resisting it, and I was afraid, and I feel like I didn't have enough knowledge and didn't know what to do, and my content wasn't good enough, and all this. And I was like, you know what? Just get to know your followers, get to know them. and get to know what they like. Like, what are they liking a lot? What are they not liking a lot? What are they engaging on? Right? What kind of polls or questions are they quick to answer? What are the messages they're sending you? Right? Like, I literally had to kind of take all of this in. And by the end of the summer, I was like, my followers are amazing. Like, they're amazing people. I am so lucky to know and have every single one of them, day in and day out in my digital life. It's so amazing when you kind of can connect in that way and get to know them. Because once I started putting the pieces together of who they were and what they were looking for and what they loved about me, what kind of content they loved, what they were after, I was like, okay, like these are my people. And I'm not afraid anymore. Like, they believe in me and I believe in them. And it's such a cool relationship when you intentionally try to do that. And I've talked to many other creators or people in the space, not creators, talked to people in the space that have come off Love is Blind that are creating. We're so much more than just a creator, right? But people who have come off Love is Blind and they're like, I don't know, like my followers. And I'm like, you don't? Like, get to know them. It's really fun. Like, it's the most exciting part for me. And she was like, oh, okay. Like, that sounds really interesting. I should do that. I haven't really done that. Or, you're doing it every day, but are you really intentionally thinking about it or kind of adding some pieces together of what your followers like and who they really are? Anyways, that was a really big thing for me.
I think it's awesome. I think too, as a follower or a fan, getting some kind of engagement, oh my gosh, Chelsea reached out to me to ask me a question about like why I love this post, or hit up my comment and responded back. Those little moments, they can be huge, for individuals. I always love the like, hey, like this post until Katy Perry likes it back. And it's, some singer covering like a Katy Perry song. And like
right?
the moment when that happens, it's like everyone's just cheering for this person. You're like, yes, we did it. And I love those moments when the community rallies behind,
yes.
And you have that engagement. It's super cool to see.
It really is. It really is. It's a whole different ball game when you used to have 100 and now you got, upwards of sometimes 90,000 people viewing a story a day. It's a remarkable thing. And I'm grateful to be in it. I think I have only dipped my foot. I'm like, into the pool of possibilities that this influencing life could bring me and bring my followers and bring others. Have I, been in it long enough to fully understand the breadth and depth of, the influence and the difference that I want to make in the world? No, like I have merely been, learning and treading water and figuring this out. But I'm excited to fine tune, content and continue to get to know my followers and, continue to try to be relatable and make a difference in the world.
That's amazing. So I had a question for both of you. Mm-hmm. And I think about, how your relationship started. And I think there's a whole bunch of people who are rooting for you. And then there's a whole bunch of people who, based on the edit, based on who they are or whatever, they're like, oh, is it even real? Are they going to implode? It's the, Bachelor, Love is Blind. These relationships don't last. But then you're putting yourself out there on social media. And so there's this weird contradiction of like, there are days when I'm going to be mad at my partner or I'm going to be frustrated, or I don't want to go create this video that's like super lovey-dovey and us, skiing in the French Alps together and sipping champagne. And there's like real life to happen. So like, how did you guys balance the pressure of feeling like you maybe need to justify your relationship or put up this super rosy image with the reality of, I'm, like you said, I'm a human being. I'm in a real marriage where there is conflict, there is challenge. There's like, hey, why did you not pick that up off the floor? Why are the dishes still in the sink? Why did you not go to the store? Whatever it might be that day, I just imagine that pressure and kind of, to be perfect and be this model relationship is pretty tough.
That's such an important point, Scott. Like that is so critical. You literally just nailed it, on the head. Like that is something we deal with. That is a real life, that's our day to day. Kwame, do you want to start or do you want me to?
If you have some initial thoughts, feel free to share them. Like,
I remember our first deal that we did, and we bickered our entire way through that entire thing. And we had to learn how we think about, a concept. And so at first we were like, okay, we're just going to come together and we're just going to fucking figure it out. And we're going to trudge through it together. And it was like excruciating for both of us. And so we were like, we're going to have to figure this out, because not many people meet their partner, get married, and then become business partners in under like 2 years. It's a lot there, Scott, like you were saying, and we are real people. So I think we, first of all, we had to figure out like, okay, let's just have like brainstorming sessions together. What's your vision? What's my vision? How do we like figure out a way to blend them together? Also, Scott, I will say this is something that Kwame and I are fine tuning much better now than we were in the beginning, is figuring out what our strengths are. What are our strengths and what are our downfalls or weaknesses? What are things that we're not very good at? Kwame and I it's really nice because we're super complementary in terms of, our strengths and kind of our areas for growth. I really do think we balance each other out well. I push Kwame to do a lot more content. I push him to do a lot more stories. I push him to really be out there and get to know his followers. I think Kwame had a beautiful Instagram before Love is Blind, and it was very curated. Whereas mine was just like, here's my life or whatever. I didn't really care, as much. And so I think Kwame's transition into this on his page has been different than mine. And that's completely okay. I have to fully respect that. Right. But I remember Kwame and I do a lot of singing videos in the car, and there was a Chris Brown video and we were singing it together. And I was like, you should post a Chris Brown video of you singing Chris Brown. And he was like, really? Like people won't like it. And it like went insane. Like his engagement on this one story was record breaking. Right. So like there's just different strengths and different things that we both have, and we can kind of push each other that way. And I think that really, really helped us, Scott, in terms of like this dance, and that we had to figure out as a married couple, who creates content together, who are dealing with normal day-to-day things. Kwame, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think all in all, like, it's funny because you're coming towards a very beautiful, end in the part of what you're saying. And now I have to kind of start from the beginning and be like, yeah, it's really difficult. But ultimately, it really is. It's a process, and you're getting to know someone. And especially when you're thrust into the situation that we are, where you wake up one day and it almost feels like in the snap of a finger. I remember as we were going through Love is Blind, we would wake up on occasional days and look at each other and be like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, you're a real person. This is actually happening, And so due to the rate in which this happened, there were so many things that had to come all together. And like Chelsea said, there are levels and degrees and different things that on their own could take people years, right? People could take years just to figure out their dynamic as partners. People could take years to figure out their dynamic as a married partnership. People could take years to figure out a business partnership. But we had to do all of that in such a compressed situation that it was tough to get to. And I think we're still learning. We have our moments. And at the end of the day, it's all about knowing that like the North Star is we are here, we are doing this together. And if we are doing this together, if that is the premise in which we place on our lives, that's going to be the same premise that we put on our content as well. And so it's about figuring it out in your real life and transitioning that same mindset into the things that you put out. You are going to have those moments. You're going to book a trip and have a partnership, then that partnership's going to it's supposed to be 3 days. And in those 3 days, you might get in an argument on day one, and it makes it tougher for the rest of the 2 days. But in those other 2 days, as you're going through it, you're like, hey, we got here together. I can't be here without you. You can't be here without me. This is who we are, right? We are a unit. We got to stand strong. We got to make it work. And at the end of the day, like, that is how we feel in our lives. Like, I love Chelsea with all my heart. I think that she inspires me so much. I think she's a brilliant, intelligent, beautiful person. And so I really do think that that applies in the way that we get to share our message as well, you know? So it's really cool. It's a beautiful partnership that had its ups and downs, but it's how life is. It's how partnership is. It's what marriage is. And as long as we come back to each other, we create something that portrays that same message.
Yeah, that was beautiful. I also have something to add too. Like, there have been times when I like have my phone in Kwame's face, or like I'm videoing everything, or I'm in like a really, content-y mood. And there have been times when Kwame's like, you can take a second, like you can take a step back, like let's, like I'm not sure I want you to videotape this, that kind of thing. Or like, let's just live in the moment for this one, Chelsea. Like, we don't have to, I feel like you have this drive and this desire to like hyper record everything in your life, everything in your marriage, everything, and it's exhausting and it's not sustainable. And it doesn't make this job all that enjoyable, to be honest. So you do have to find that balance for yourself, and you do have to have days off of your phone if you can, or moments or hours, or, put that in there, but also just to enjoy experiences without the technology, without the phone. And I think Kwame helps me kind of reel it back sometimes. And I've learned to like ask, like, is it okay if I record this? Is it okay if we make this, I put this on my story, or, kind of thing, just having that conversation and getting that permission, as opposed to just like, what did you say that was funny? And like putting my phone in his face. You know what I'm saying? Do we miss moments? Absolutely. Like, we're just humans, and that's totally okay. And that's normal. But I think that Kwame helps me kind of reel it back in sometimes. And that's something, Scott, that we've had to, figure out. But there's those strengths that we can support each other on, and those, areas for growth that we can support each other on too.
Well, I can say from my side, we love you guys. We've loved being a part of your journey, and, knowing both of you kind of in a different way. I think as time goes on, who you really are shines through in how you show up, the content you create, how you guys engage, not just in social media, but those in life. And, I think we're all champions of yours. And, these kind of conversations, these are the moments where, you're at your realist, and we get to continue the story that we kind of joined on early on, and get to see it for what it is. And edit aside, like, it's very clear the love you all have for each other. And it's fun to see that manifest in how you represent yourselves online. And I'm stoked to be a small part of this journey, unpacking it today. And I think a lot of people, they can appreciate the struggle of trying to be a real human and living your life and putting something out into the world for people to enjoy. So I really appreciate you guys both opening up and taking the time.
Thank you, Scott. That was awesome. I had a great time. I'm so excited for you two. You guys are going to do big things, and even working really hard towards this. And I believe in my husband more than anyone in this world. And you are meant for this, Kwame. This is perfect for you. And Scott is a great, leader and mentor. And I think it's such a cool thing that you guys get to learn from each other.
Yeah, it's really exciting, and I'm blessed to be part of it. I'm blessed to have this opportunity and be here with Scott, and we're both very happy and blessed to get to talk to people like you, and obviously, most importantly, in this moment, get to talk to you and yourself. And thank you for sharing the parts of you that you share with the world, and obviously the parts that you share with me as well.
You are very welcome. I hope you guys have me back sometime soon.
We'll think about it. Okay. All right, Chelsea. Thanks so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. That's a wrap for episode 2 of Beyond Influence. See y'all next time.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Wanna hear